My name is Bradley Bowen. I'm a professor here at NDSU in the College of Engineering. And today I'm going to be talking to you about the winning notebook. What you need to do to have a very good notebook. Okay? So these are the things I'm going to be talking about. And we only have 30 minutes, so we're probably going to run through some of it pretty quickly. Okay? So first of all, we're just going to talk about the notebook and the notebook requirements. Okay, we're going to talk about specifically the engineering design process, different sections of the notebook. Then I'm going to specifically talk about the appendix and how to use that effectively. Okay, and I'll tell you why in just a few minutes. Then I'm going to talk about some characteristics of bad notebooks, because sometimes it's just as easy to learn from things we do wrong as things we do well. Okay, and then I'm going to give you a few tips, and then I have some examples up here that you're more than welcome to look at the end when we have a few minutes at the end. And then during that time, I can also take some questions. All right, so let's talk about what's the notebook. So the notebook is for documenting the process used to design, build, and test the robot. Okay, documenting the process. The process is the key word. Okay, I'll probably mention that a lot during this presentation. Okay, all teams are required to submit a notebook, regardless if you're doing the best or not doing the best competition. You are still required to submit a notebook either way. Okay, so this applies to everybody. All right, the notebook is worth 25 points. Now, if you notice the point value of the different components of the project, the robot performance was 15 points out of the 100. The notebook is 25. So the notebook is actually worth significantly more than the way your robot actually performs. Keep that in mind when it comes to how much time you allocate to putting the notebook and documenting the notebook. Okay, it's very, very important. It's worth the most points. Okay, so please keep that in mind as this next 6 weeks go on. Okay, so the project requirements and the notebook requirements are no secret. You have everything you need in your packet that tells you what to put in the notebook. Okay, the grading should be in there about how we're going to grade the notebook. Okay, so please use that as a guide when it comes to putting things in there, because we're going to be looking at the same thing when we grade it. All right, so looking at some notebook requirements. Okay, standard 3-ring binder with 2-inch max rings. Okay, these aren't suggestions, these are requirements. Okay, so please do these things exactly the way they're said in the details. 8.5 by 11 paper, 30 pages typed. Okay, the main notebook document cannot be more than 30 pages. Don't have 31, okay, or 30 and an extra sentence. Have 30 max, okay? Following the rules is very important, just like the content quality is important. Following the rules are important. Yes, sir?
Can you have the pages printed on both sides?
We're going to talk about that. Single-sided. There's your answer. Your question came at the right time. 30 pages single-sided. Okay? Don't print on both sides. Don't write on both sides. Just 30 pages single-sided. Okay? Only write or type on one side. Double-spaced for the typing. Okay? You can use single spacing if appropriate, in tables and things like that of that nature, to make it look correct or whatever. Tables are a little different, so you can do single spacing in that. But for the main text of the body, double spacing. The directions say Times New Roman font or similar professional style. Okay? To take the guesswork out of choosing what a similar professional style is, I would just recommend using Times New Roman. Okay, it says you can use it in the directions, then use it. Otherwise, we kind of have to worry. Some text looks funny sometimes and whatnot. Let's just stick to something basic. Okay, Times New Roman is a perfectly acceptable font, so I would just recommend doing that. 12 font size. Okay, make sure your whole paper is 12 font. All right, binder cover must identify school, team name, teacher contact, and team number. Okay. All right, so some different sections. Now, I'm not going to go through every single section in detail, because you have the directions for that in your packet. Okay, I am going to touch on some things I think are important that we've seen and missed in the past, because I do grade notebooks, so I'm just going to kind of touch on the sections that we think sometimes don't get interpreted correctly. Okay, so one of the sections is implementing the engineering design process. Okay, this should be reflected throughout the entire notebook. Okay, so you may ask yourself, what is the engineering design process? All right, well, here is one example, just an example. Okay, defining the problem, doing research, brainstorming solutions, choosing a solutions, building, testing, communicating those test results and solutions, and then redesigning as necessary based on those test results, which brings you all the way back around the loop. Okay? It is important that you document the entire process that you go through over the next 6 weeks, from the very beginning to the very end, and you will hit all these different areas. Okay? As an engineer, we are just as concerned about the process as we are the final result. Okay, so we need to see that you've documented your entire process. For instance, as soon as they took the tarp off the game board, how many of you started thinking of possible solutions to this problem? Yes, thank you for raising your hand and being the guinea pig. Yes, okay. Document that and put it in your notebook. Any idea you thought of today, write it down, put it in the notebook. That is great stuff to put in there, okay? Don't leave out anything. If you thought about it, put it in there. All right, one section is the research paper, okay? So this is kind of a little separate entity to the design process, because you have a separate paper in there that's 2 to 5 pages that's going to describe how this year's game theme is related to current technological problems. Okay? And specifically, how is this game theme relevant to current engineering practices in your area? You know, maybe your geographic area, okay? Or your field of interest or expertise. Okay? So with the research paper, you know, my encouragement is to go on a field trip to a company. You know, find out what their processes look like. Talk to managers, okay? If you can talk to some employees, just try to get a perspective on how they use the engineering design process based on concepts of this game theme, okay, in their work. Okay, talk to local engineers and managers, and then show proper documentation, of course, of any resources you use in your paper. Okay, because any idea that is not our own, we have to give credit to whoever has that idea. That's what references are for. Okay. All right, so here's some other notebook sections. Okay, brainstorming approaches. You know, sometimes the documentation of brainstorming gets overlooked, but this is an extremely valuable section to document. You know, a lot of times, you know, we may be sitting around writing ideas on the whiteboard, or you may just, you know, be drawing a picture on a napkin at lunch or whatever it is. You know, if you draw a picture on, you know, if you're sitting around at lunch and you're like, man, I have an idea. Well, if we made it look like this, and you draw it on a napkin, then like take a picture of that napkin and put it in your notebook. I mean, those are things we want to see, because we just want to see all the times and all the processes you're using to think about the entire process. Okay, if you write something on a whiteboard, take a picture of it. You know, everybody's phone takes pictures these days. Take a picture of it, download it, stick it in the notebook. Okay, all these things are very valuable information. Analytical evolution, okay, you know, design alternatives when you're developing possible solutions. Show us that you thought of multiple ways to solve the problem, and then show us how you analyzed each of those possible solutions to come up with the one that you're using. Okay, we want to see that you thought of different ways to solve the problem, and then how you decided which one of those ideas you thought was best. How did you determine which solution was best? Show us how you did that. Offensive and defensive evaluation, you know, sometimes it's just as good not to get penalties as it is to get points, you know. You know, what good is scoring tons of points if you eventually get disqualified for something, okay? So we want to see how you took the approach as to how aggressive you're going to be, versus how are we going to make sure that we end up with a score when this 3-minute round is over. Okay, safety is always key. Okay, and safety, I mean, not only is the robot performing safely, but safety also means if you're using tools and materials in the classroom while you're building the robot, are all the students familiar with safety procedures? Is there times that students need to be wearing safety goggles or gloves? Or are there specialized tools that you're using that someone needs to be shown how it operates? Okay, so we just want to make sure that not only the robot operates safely, but that you all stay safe as you're building the robot. Okay, and we want to see documentation that you're using safe procedures for building the robot. Support documentation, okay. I'm going to kind of talk about that a little separately when I'm going to talk about the appendix kind of alone, because that's important as well. And just overall quality and completeness of the notebook. All right, so the appendix is something I want to talk about. The appendix says you can have 20 double-sided pages. So really, 40 single-side pages. That's what it's equal to. So if you take 30 single-side pages in the main body of the notebook and 40 single-side pages in the appendix, that's 70 pages that you have to document this process. Okay? Now, I'm not recommending that you just make up a bunch of junk just to fill up the 70 pages. Okay? Please don't do that, because we don't like to look at junk either. Okay? But what I'm saying is, don't leave anything out because you don't think it belongs. Everything belongs. Now, if you collect everything and it's more than 70 pages, okay, now you can kind of pick and choose things, making sure to leave in there examples of each step of the process. Okay? Take advantage of the appendix. Right, no more than 20 pages, front and back. Okay? I already did that. All right, so examples, drawings or photos, like I mentioned, like photos of the brainstorming process. If that, doesn't necessarily belong in the body, photos take up space. Okay, so basically in the main body, you could talk about your brainstorming process and then just say see appendix whatever or page whatever in the appendix for, further documentation on this process. Okay, so give us the need to know information in the body, and then you can refer to the appendix to support that type of information that you had in the main body. Okay? So, charts, team meeting minutes, obviously that should not go in the main body. That's just support documentation. Test results in the main body, talked about how you tested it in the main result, and then in the appendix you can talk to us more about multiple results, or, that's a good place to put team meeting minutes. Just to show us that you were having meetings, what was discussed during those meetings, just to prove that you're going through the entire engineering process.